Hey everyone, welcome to Kurt's RPM Garage, and today I just wanted to go over some of the problems I've had with my 2003 C5 Corvette Z06. I've owned this car for about 5 years now. I bought it with 90,000 miles on the clock, and currently it's about 105, 106,000 I think it was. And I paid $10,000, which was extremely cheap even for that time, but it had a couple issues at the time which I was aware of, and which I was able to fix relatively cheaply. Well, at least some of them. Let's get into it, I'll tell you all about it. Yeah, so what happened was when I bought the car, the paint was terrible. The guy had it wrapped and he took it off before he sold it, and it took up, I don't know, a third of the paint probably came up, the roof, the hood, all that just came up with the wrap. So the paint was totally done for. When he posted the ad, he put like one blurry photo, so you knew he was aware of it. But yeah, so I took it to a few places to get a paint job, and yeah, nice paint jobs are expensive. I was getting 6,000 plus were my estimates, and like I said, I paid 10,000 for this. Didn't want to put a lot into it. This is not going to be a show car. It's a high mileage vehicle, and I use it as a track, autocross, canyon carver kind of thing. Do not daily drive it. I got a pickup truck for that, which my job requires. So yeah, I ended up finding a place that would do it for a little bit cheaper. It was not Mako. It was a step or two above that, but they offered to do it for $2,700, something like that. I've got the receipt somewhere. But yeah, so I let them do it, and it was not the best paint job. You can probably see if I pan around here, some spots, there's kind of almost looks like veins. There's some like little dots. Some of the corners, the paint is almost, I don't want to say coming up, but if you go down towards the bottom, especially parts where you don't always look at, the paint is just not the best. So yeah, definitely get what you pay for. Certain spots like right here, you can see some white. That's actually wax. That's just from me doing a piss poor job, just cleaning that up after the fact. Like I said, not a show car. This is just my fun weekend driver. But yeah, so paid $2,600, $2,700 for that. And then it had another issue too, which was the engine, or out of the exhaust, it was smoking, but very lightly, which probably scared off a lot of people. But I managed to, I'm pretty familiar with LSs and small block Chevys and that, so I decided to take a risk on it. And it turned out to just be valve seals, which was incredible because I was able to take the valve covers off, pull the springs and all that kind of stuff out, and replace the valve seals. And it was like less than $50 and an afternoon, couple of beers with a ratchet set. So that was amazing. That totally cured the smoking problem. That was almost a non-issue whatsoever. The other thing was when I bought the car, it was actually lowered. This car uses leaf springs. It's kind of a transverse leaf springs, which a lot of people hate on, but it's not like a traditional setup that you would think like a normal car. It would go from left to right. And they had some bolts that you could loosen up, and with some aftermarket pieces, you could slam this thing down right on the ground, which I don't know how anyone drives anything like this, especially here. I don't know if you see my driveway goes down a ramp. There's speed bumps in every shopping center. This thing had like a ½ inch of ground clearance. It just scraped on everything. So that was the first thing I did, was just raise this thing up, which was not difficult. Just tightened up those bolts and lifted up, then had to take it and get an alignment. But unfortunately, this caused a couple issues. The place I took it to a Chevrolet dealer because I thought, oh, they'll do a good job. Well, first actually I took it to some cheaper places, but the car was too low to get on any of the ramps, so they couldn't even do it. So I ended up going to the Chevy dealer. They said they'd take care of it, and they did. Great, fantastic. But unfortunately, a couple of months after that, I was driving the car quite a bit. I realized a couple things. I was getting some groaning out of the rear end, it seemed like. And my rear tires were wearing extremely quickly. And after putting two and two together, I replaced the tires, ended up having 2 bad rear wheel bearings, replaced those. I took it into another alignment place. This place was much more like dedicated for sports car. They had a specialty lift and all that. And it turned out the rear tires were towed in about 3 degrees or something like that. But it was the fact where I wore out the rear tires in 3,000 miles. And I have a separate set of tires for the track. That was just from driving around the street. And I don't do burnouts like all the time or anything. 3,000 was absurd. And these tires are not cheap. They're 400 plus a pop. So yeah, I was not happy with that. But finally that new alignment place got me squared away. All set, great, that's fantastic. But So those were the main things I had to deal with after I bought it. Like I said, I've had it 5 years, but a couple other issues have cropped up. Shortly after buying it, the air conditioner went out, which was not too bad. I was able to buy all the pieces and do that myself, just watching a few YouTube videos. And I was able to recharge that and fix that pretty easily with a couple $100, and it's been working perfectly ever since. So that wasn't too bad. Let's see, there's something to do with the ABS computer. It's something to do with like a solder goes bad. Let's see if we pull this up, if we can see it. This was like right after I bought it, but oh, where is that thing? Oh, here it is. That right down here, you see this thing with all these things coming out. It's something to do with the ABS, and what happened was all the traction control, ABS lights all just started lighting up, and nothing would work in regards to that stuff. You still drive the car, but your dash would just be lit up. So what you can do is you can go on eBay, and there's some sellers who will refurbish those. So if you can pull those off, which obviously you got to take off a number of things, coolant hose, all that kind of stuff, and then send it back to them. They'll resolder it for you, or you could do it yourself. But I wasn't too aware of this thing, and I didn't really know how to solder at the time. This was 5 years ago. So I sent it off to him. I think it was like 50 or $100. They'd fix it up and send it back to you. Took a couple weeks, slapped it back in, and that totally fixed it, which was great. Not a big issue. Let's see, what else? Similar thing on the stereo in the car. I currently have a double din aftermarket unit, which you might be able to see, but that underneath the stereo, yeah, it actually wasn't the stereo. The AC controls, the light and even the screen stopped working, and it was the same thing. It was just a solder that went bad. Again, you go on eBay, there's some guys that will, you can pull it out and ship it away to them. They'll fix it up and send it back to you. So that's exactly what I did. Like I said, it was like 50 bucks. I think I got the optional upgrade to upgrade the lights, just to change them to LEDs and a different color. So we made those blue just for fun. It was a couple bucks. Yeah, not a huge deal, but just another thing on the list. And then let's see. Oh yeah, we had a steering hose leak, which again, it was just down here. Actually, it was in front of here. I was filling up the steering reservoir just constantly. Every time I had to drive it, I had to just check the level, and it down there was just absolutely soaked with oil, or hydraulic fluid, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I had to buy some special crow's foot wrenches, get down there, pull that off, and I was able to do it. It's not too bad. There's some how-to videos on YouTube how to do that. But yeah, just another little thing just added to it. Actually, currently the engine does have a small oil leak, and I have no idea where it's coming from. I've looked quite a bit, cleaned it off, and I'm not really sure. I replaced the lower, what's it called? The oil seal on not the engine oil pan. There's a lower seal and an upper one. The upper one you have to basically take out the engine to do. I replaced the lower one, and that didn't seem to fix it. It's still, every time I go to drive it, it leaves about a drop or two on the ground. So it's all right. It's not the end of the world. Just chuck some cardboard or a pan under it, and then try not to park in my friends' driveways. But yeah, that's kind of annoying. Let's see. I did have an aftermarket shifter, which obviously that's not necessarily Chevy's fault, but the shifter rattled quite badly. So I ended up swapping in a C5 Z06 shifter, which is great. Really love that. I think those are most of the small things. And then I had two big problems. But one of the beautiful things about this car is it's really easy to work on. Generally, everything's pretty exposed and easy to get to, except for three things. And unfortunately, I had problems with two of them. So there's your engine. Behind that, you have your transmission. Behind that, you have your torque tube. And then your diff is connected to that. And unfortunately, to get to those, you have to basically disassemble half the car. And you have to lift the car up and pull those out from underneath, disconnect all kinds of stuff. And unfortunately, I had a problem with the differential and the transmission. The transmission problem came first. It basically reversed, stopped engaging. And this happened pretty soon into me buying it. I don't know if the previous owner had this problem, and he kind of was able to adjust it out. But when you shift it into reverse, it wouldn't stay there. It would pop right out the second you lift off the clutch to engage. It would just pop right out. So what you could do is you could hold it, just push it up against it, and then let out the clutch, and it would work. Sometimes it might grind a tiny bit, but I mean, it was already pretty messed up. So I was able to drive it like that for at least a year or two before it got to the point where that stopped working. It got to a point where every time you lifted off the clutch, it would just start grinding and it would not move at all. So when that happened, I broke out the jack stands and pulled this car apart and pulled the transmission out. I'm no transmission expert, so I ended up taking that somewhere. I had a guy down the road, does that kind of stuff. I think he sorted it out for $1,500 or something. So not too expensive, but I did a lot of the main labor myself by pulling the transmission. That would have easily doubled the price just doing that. So what happened was the reverse gear, something about it was worn out on one side. He was able to just flip it, and then he was good to go. Or it was good to go, slapped it back in. I think he upgraded a few things for me too while he was in there. And then about a year or two after that, the rear end started making noise. And this was after I'd replaced the rear wheel bearings. So I don't know what the heck was going on. Man, I can't even remember what the noise was, but it was just like a grumbling or something coming from the rear, really disconcerting. But when you put the car in gear, it was pretty obvious it was the rear end. So once again, I broke out the jack stands and pulled everything apart and got the differential out, took it to a specialty place down the road. They had some old timer who specialized in Viper and Corvette rear ends, and he sorted it out. But what was kind of weird was this car, when I bought it, someone originally had replaced the rear end, and they put a 410 rear axle ratio in the back. And the guy said something about they were like just poor quality clutch plates for the limited slip portion of it, and they were just falling apart. So those were just getting into the gears and just making a ton of noise. He was able to sort that out and get it back to me, and I slapped it back in the car, and I think that cost me another, I don't know, $1,500, $2,000, somewhere in that range. Wasn't too terrible, but add it all together, and I paid $10,000 for the car. I don't know, $2,500 for paint, $2,000 for transmission, $2,000 for diff, a bunch of other stuff. So I don't know, I'm not doing too bad. I probably have $20,000, $25,000 in the car. So luckily I was able to do virtually all of this stuff myself. Save myself a ton of money. If I didn't, I'd probably be $30,000, $35,000 into this car pretty easily, just from all the little stuff. But yeah, overall, I still love the car. That stuff was all a pain. However, I did learn a lot working on this. So we've had other cars in the past that I've also been able to use a lot of this knowledge and tools that I've accrued just to work on other stuff. So yeah, still love the car. I'll do some other stuff about it in the future, but that's been my ownership experience. Would I do the same thing again? I'd probably be a bit more cautious about what I bought. The high mileage doesn't necessarily scare me, but I think this car was probably a bit abused. Like I said, it had 410s in the back. I think the guy might have done like some drag racing and stuff in the past. I bought the car from the guy's son. I think he passed away when I picked it up. So the car was just sitting in the garage, just neglected. But yeah, in the future, I'd probably do a bit more research. Make sure you get a nicer example. Like I said, high mileage isn't the end of the world, especially these LSs are just amazing. Like I said, I've had very few issues with the engine. Just those valve seals, which is almost nothing, and there's a small oil leak. But the engine runs fantastic, 105,000 on the clock right now. Still pulls like an absolute dream, sounds amazing. Just a great engine. And then the car handles great, it's fun on the track, all that. But yeah, I'll go into that in a different video. Just wanted to give you guys a little idea of what I've had to deal with in my 5 years of ownership. So hopefully this was helpful. If you got any other questions and you're looking to buy your own C5 Z06, I'm happy to answer them. So yeah, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys on the next one. See ya.